is the John Hayner House, which was located in South Lebanon along the Little Miami River and on 324 acres of land. John Hayner didn't build the house. It was built originally for James Russa, and the architect of that house was Amos Bennett. And we think, we're not 100% sure, but it's based on several other houses that he built in this area. And the one in Lebanon, Glendower, looks pretty much like the Hayner House. So that's why we think it was Amos Bennett. It goes back a little bit earlier to 1794 when John Cleve Sims purchased from the U.S. government 250,000 acres. And he began selling piece by piece, acres here and there, and then finally James Russa got it, and then had the house built. John Hayner had 324 acres that he purchased, continued to add more land, and got to about 800 acres of land. And on that he raised corn and had a sugar corn drying plant with a couple of partners. And for about 10 years they dried corn, and it was an easier way to ship the corn because the hogs would eat it and pigs, and then they would take the pigs to market. So that's how they got it to move it easier. But after about 10 years he found that the profits were diminishing. So what he decided to do was change the buildings from drying corn to canning corn. And by the early 1900s, he was canning 40,000 cases of corn a year. And quite significant there. And he had moved into Lebanon sometime in the 1870s, and his family still, his son lived here for a while. And when he died in 1916, the house wasn't lived in on a regular basis. And with the Little Miami River flooding a lot, it kind of started to damage the house and falling into ill repair. And so it was left vacant for a while. So vandals came in and took some of the furnishings, did some damage to it besides the natural causes happening. Sometime, it was probably about 1964 when Mr. Fleischman purchased the building, had it taken apart, and then he stored it prior to giving it to the Miami Purchase Association, which was previous to Historic Southwest Ohio and the Heritage Village Museum. And then it was put onto the land in Sharon Woods Park. And it took about 3 summers to reconstruct the building. It wasn't 100% original. 95% of the interior trim was original. But over time, pieces being replaced and then moving it here, some pieces were lost. There was 14 rooms in the Hayner House, 10 on the first floor and 4 upstairs. The ones upstairs weren't finished except for 2 of them. The rest was mainly attic space. On the first floor, John Hayner's office was in one of the wings of the house, and the farm workers would come to this door that he had at the back of the room and enter that way instead of traveling throughout the whole house. There's 3 bedrooms on the first floor. Mrs. Hayner had a bedroom, and Mr. Hayner had a bedroom, and they were back to back, and we're in that space now, which was Mrs. Hayner's bedroom. And then at the next room was the dining room, and that's where obviously dinner was held, but the workers during harvest time, there'd be 100 to 150 workers here, and then they would kind of eat in shifts because the room wasn't big, so they'd be small groups of eating, and then at night, they got together in there for socializing, or on the side porch they'd socialize. The kitchen was downstairs in the basement, and there was a dumbwaiter that would bring the food up to the prep area. In 1863 is when John Hayner purchased this home, and it was the Greek Revival architectural style, and that can be told by looking at the front porch that has 4 fluted columns that end in Ionic capitals. You can also look at the house and see dental work, which is also a classic example of Greek Revival. Now, when the house in the 1860s and 1870s had a widow's walk that could be accessed through one of the rooms on the second floor. And what was cool about that is you could view up and down the Little Miami River, and that must have been a beautiful view along that river. We have over 6,000 school kids come from the tri-state area to the village for different programs. And we use several of the buildings for the program, where they can see different aspects of the 1800s. And each building, there's some activity that they try, so that helps them learn better by doing. But we can always use more volunteers so that we can do more programs for school groups. If anyone has an interest in volunteering, they just need to call the office. Call 513-563-9484.